Joining us now, Gene, stay with us, is Senator Robert Menendez from New Jersey. Senator, we've just had this breaking news. We're still sorting through it. Pete Williams, our justice correspondent, is reading through the opinion, but at least in part, the judge has enjoined Arizona from carrying out the enforcement of the immigration law, which was to take place, as you know, at midnight tonight. Your reaction?
Well, I'm glad to see the judge did enjoin what clearly is a federal responsibility, and I think it was important to do so because not only the effect of what the Arizona law would have been in Arizona, but the fact that there are so many other states that seem to be lining up to do exactly or similar type laws to Arizona, and some who are not going to do anything at all. And we'd have a hodgepodge of laws across the nation on something that is preeminently under federal jurisdiction. I think even the Supreme Court in past cases has spoken about the primacy of the federal government in this field. And so I'm glad to see that they enjoyed certainly the most controversial part of the law.
But, Senator, one of the arguments, if you were standing in Arizona and you were the Governor Brewer or some of the other supporters of the law, is that the federal government, that you all in the Senate have, they would say, failed your responsibility because of gridlock, because of arguments that there has been no progress on immigration law. And in fact, in this election year, that some of the people who supported it in the past, who supported taking action, have really copped out on this.
Well, Andrea, I'd make 2 points. Number one is we have, particularly this administration and Democrats in Congress, have spent more money on the enforcement side. We have more boots of a variety of agencies, Customs, Border Patrol, DEA, all along the border than we have ever had in our nation's history. We have spent more money on physical impediments to come into the country. We have spent money on aerial surveillance. So the bottom line is we have a dramatic increase in the whole enforcement side, but we know that enforcement only won't solve the challenges that we have, and that's why comprehensive reform is so necessary. The second point is I wish that the governor of Arizona and others would talk to their United States senators and say that we need that type of comprehensive reform, because it's very interesting to me to hear the voices saying that we need the Arizona law because the Congress has not moved forward, and yet those are the very same states whose members in the Senate are opposing movement towards a comprehensive reform. You can't have it both ways.
Senator, stand by with us if you can for just a moment, and I want to bring back Pete Williams, our justice correspondent, who's been reading the decision. Pete, can you give us a little bit more detail?
Sure. Now, what the judge basically says here, Andrea, is that she agrees with the federal government's argument that if Arizona were to carry out this scheme that it came up with in the legislature, this package of laws, that it would, in fact, preempt federal law and cause some additional problems for people who are here legally. What she says is requiring police in Arizona to determine the immigration status of every person who is arrested, I'm quoting from the decision now, burdens lawfully present aliens, that's the legal term for people from outside the country who are not U.S. citizens, because their liberty will be restricted while their status is checked. Given the large number of people who are technically arrested but never booked into jail or perhaps even taken to the police station, detention time for this category of arrestee will certainly be extended. And she says basically it's kind of open-ended. And she says requiring these people to prove their immigration status to the satisfaction of state authorities will unnecessarily burden them, including some United States citizens who she says will be swept up in this. And she second agrees with what the federal government has argued from the beginning here, that what Arizona wants to do is try to sweep up more potential people who are here illegally and get the federal government to check that. The Justice Department has argued that that will divert enforcement resources from what the government thinks is the big problem, which is people here who are criminal aliens who represent a danger to the government. The judge says the increase in the number of requests for immigration status is likely to burden the federal government, will divert resources from the government's response, and therefore is preempted. Now, one other thing, Andrea. The judge here who wrote this decision, Susan Bolton, is a former county judge in Arizona. She's been there a long time. She understands the problem and the politics in Arizona, and she says toward the end of this decision that she by no means disregards Arizona's interest in controlling illegal immigration and addressing the problems of crime that the trafficking of illegal immigration causes. But she says even though Arizona's interests may be consistent with those of the federal government, it's not in the public interest for Arizona to enforce preempted laws. So to sum up, Andrea, she has not struck the whole law down, but she has struck down the most controversial part, requiring that Arizona police determine the immigration status of everybody they think is reasonably think is here illegally, that they find when they make arrests or traffic stops. She has struck down the new requirement, or I shouldn't say struck down. She has put a preliminary hold on these provisions that creates a crime in Arizona for failing to carry your federally required registration papers. She is putting a hold on the part that makes it a crime for somebody who's not authorized to be here to seek work. And she's put a hold on this rather open-ended part of the law that allowed warrantless arrests of people that a policeman thought might have committed an offense that would make them removable from the U.S. The rest of the law she has not interfered with. The parts of the law that allow people to sue if they think that Arizona police agencies are not fully enforcing the law. Changes to the crime of human smuggling that makes it a crime for you to drive along in your car and stop traffic to try to pick up people who might be illegal aliens to come and work for you. All of the rest of the law can go ahead and be enforced. So come tomorrow, Arizona can enforce some of this law, but not the most controversial part of this law.
What about the political fallout? Senator Menendez, you're the head of the campaign committee. Where do Democrats go now, and Republicans, in trying to take political advantage of what is still a roiling controversy?
Well, look, Andrea, first of all, one of the things that we've seen even before this Arizona law went into effect across the country in immigration raids is that U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents of the United States who obey the law, follow the rules, have been unlawfully detained. There's one case of a young Mexican-American born in the United States, Iraq War veteran, that was detained unlawfully for weeks until his immigration status was determined. Who among us would accept second-class citizenship in this country simply because of the nature of who we look like, how we speak, or the neighborhood we live in? And so, that's a couple of hundred cases that I know of before Arizona would have gone into effect. I think the compelling nature of that says to particularly communities like the Hispanic community and others that who was on the side of making sure that their rights as a citizen were preserved. And that's the Obama administration by taking this action. And certainly that has to inure to the benefit of knowing who stands on your side, and that in this case was a Democratic administration.